our wind level is picking up quite a bit. It's not a breeze anymore. We have now started with a few gusts. I believe the cold front that's hitting us today is going to extend right the way through the end of the week. But I wanted to come down and check Chelapan, the first thing I want to do. So this is going to be my first stop after Gari Dam for my leopard tracks. And this is one of my favorite areas to check. I've had such good luck here with Tandi, Kalamba, even with buffaloes. So it's always been an interesting bird system. But while I pull up and have a look around, let's have a look at what our weather's doing in our different locations.
And we are at the spot, or where we think Tlalamba was left this morning, and we're trying to just find the exact tree, just looking at the surroundings, if there's any sign of any birds or anything that gives her position away. My name is Chris. With me on CamOps today is Owen. Now, I know that Kelly left her this morning up in a tree, and I've got a photo of what the tree looks like and a GPS location, and it seems like she may have moved. And we'll just sit around here for a minute or two and see if there's no francolins alarming. I suspect that she would have come down the tree and perhaps go into the drainage, or perhaps even find a nice little, wooded area to hide from the drizzle. And that will be our plan initially, is to try and find Tlalamba, since that's the only cat sighting this morning that we can really follow up on. So far, nothing to report on. I think that's perhaps a tree back there. There's a couple of nice marulas around, so I'll just check them around with my binoculars. A general direction was towards Treehouse Dam, so might actually go there and just check it out. There's a fine little drizzle at the moment, but it's literally like a fine little spray. Nothing to worry about at the moment. Good afternoon, Aunt Christine. Welcome aboard. You want to know if leopards prefer to hunt after the rain? It all depends on what their activity was prior to the rain. If they haven't had food, yes, they would. But I found most of the time after rain, they will spend a bit more effort to mark their territory, since all the scent that they left previously would have been washed away. So if anything, they're likely to rather re-establish that scent barrier after rain like this. But then again, it all depends what they did before the rain. This is good hunting conditions, by the way. Scan all the trees. I doubt whether she'll be up in a tree at the moment, but I can be wrong. all the trees. Right, let me go and scan the area a little bit further.
Oh, good luck, Chris. I'm wondering if those leopard tracks that we had were not possibly from Tlalamba. But what I'm going to do, I've just arrived at one of the junctions of the drainage line. Oh, I'm forgetting we have a roof on, G. That's not the best for a view, but I'll try. I want to just have a stop here and a listen, just to see if we can hear anything. It's a really important place for us to be listening, because drainage lines are the best place for animals on a day like today, in an area like we have, to hide from the elements, but also to stay safe. So let's just have a listen. Right, so I'm not hearing anything just yet, but I am going to stick close to the drainage line and head down towards Twin Dams. Mulawati is a very productive drainage line, and I think it's worth it on a day like today. So I decided to have a quick stop here. This is in fact the first place I ever met Tlalamba, and I was with Morgan, and we spotted her on a termite mound here. She had a kill in one of those trees across the drainage line in the Mulawati riverbed. And I figured it's a good place to stop and listen, not because I'm looking for Tlalamba, but because it's a great place for animals in bad weather to be hiding from the elements, but also keeping safe. Unfortunately, I haven't heard anything other than wind, and of course we are getting wet. So I think I'm going to carry on towards Twin Dams. I'm going to pop in at Ribbon's Den site as well and see if perhaps there might be anybody home. I have a feeling though that because it is raining, that we might not have anyone at the den site. Might be a little bit chilly for the cubs to be out, even if the adults are there. But we'll try. Gotta try. One thing that is good about this weather is elephants tend to like it quite a lot. So I'm hoping we will find. Chris was telling me there were quite a few elephants this morning. Aunt Christine, predators actually have an advantage in weather like this when they're hunting. And that's because in the cooler conditions, oh, hyena. And it's Ribbon. Are you kidding? Predators have an advantage because it's cooler, so they can be moving in the middle of the day, as Ribbon has just showed us. And of course, the sound of the rain and the wind covers the scent and the sound of their approach. I wonder if Ribbon's going back towards the den site. Let's have a look as she's walking away. We are going to follow her. Yes, she's cutting straight across the drainage line. Oh, I wonder if she's going to the den site. That is so exciting. What good timing. Now you see, if I hadn't have stopped at that drainage line little entrance there, the crossing, we would have missed her. If I'd been 5 minutes earlier, we would have missed her. We might have gone to the den site and she might have been gone already. I love it. Nature is so unpredictable. Okay, I'm looping around to the den site, so I've got to cross the drainage line, and it's just up on my right hand side. It's the first time I've seen I can't believe that. But yes, talking about the weather and predators, they're more active, they've got a better chance of approaching, of being noticed, and of keeping the carcass cool afterwards, which will mean that they can feed for longer. Fantastic. All of my best predator sightings to date have been on days like today. It's tougher to find predators, but once you find them, you have the most amazing sightings. So Ribbon would be coming from the right-hand side. Alright, so I'm going to pull up to the den site. Hopefully we get Ribbon coming in. But while I get there, let's head over to JP to say good afternoon.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Pridelands on a very windy and possibly rainy afternoon. Our plan for this afternoon is going to duck around rain squalls as there's a few drops that's already falling. We've been fortunate, we've already found a small little herd of impala as well as a single blue wildebeest. So my name is JP LaRue and behind the camera we've got Craig. Something interesting that we did pick up in this group, I just want to see if we can find that impala again. We actually do have a female in this group that actually does have horns, which is quite unique for impala. There she is, right in the center, and what you'll notice is that the horns are very thin at the base, as well as the horns are slightly contorted into two different directions. In this case of this specific female, most likely damaged them somewhere when she was very young, and that's why they're actually in different directions. So generally when it does come to woodland antelope species such as impala, it's only the rams that have horns, and the reason why is they need them for fighting against one another. But if you're a female, you don't want horns as these get stuck on the vegetation. We also find that the females generally will just utilize their cryptic colors and they simply will freeze, and that means that they stand dead still when they do find a potential threat. In the case of impala, if the threat does approach further, they might snort and alert one another and then scatter off. And what we generally see is that they all scatter into different directions and then will regroup again. If you were wondering what they were doing this afternoon in the open and why they're resting over here, it's because it's incredibly windy, and with a wind like this, it makes it very tricky for them to actually hear as well as smell. So they actually now have to rely on sight to detect any potential threats that might approach them. And meanwhile, let's go and see what Tess and her hyenas are up to.
We got here just in the nick of time. Ribbon has just laid down and both the cubs are suckling. This is a very special moment for me. I have not seen Ribbon back at the den site the whole time I've been back. So let's just watch for a little bit and take it in. She's trying to get comfortable by moving her leg. She's giving the other cubs some space. I can't believe how big these two cubs are getting. Beautiful spot patterns. Lots of vocalization in the last while. Hyena boy, it's all in the name, isn't it? It's a very special moment. I know we've been waiting for an update on Ribbon for a few days. We haven't seen her around as much. And I think that's just because the rest of the clan has been quite active in this area. Now that she is the lowest ranking female again, she has to mind her movements around Corky and the others. But it's very special to see them here. Imagine being one of her young sons on a cold day like today. Ribbon's milk is so high in nutrition, and of course it's warm and it's a little bit of comfort. It didn't take 2 seconds once she had laid down at the entrance for those cubs to come out and immediately latch on. How cute is that? That cub just put its paw over her belly, getting comfortable for the long haul here. Every now and then I'm hearing the slightest little squeaks out of them. Hyenas are very social and vocal animals, and it's probably my favorite time that I spend with the cubs is when they're being vocal. Kevin, yes, her body's hormones will change. So as the cubs are getting older and they start weaning, she'll start producing less and less milk until they're completely weaned and she will no longer need to produce milk. Can you imagine making milk is a very energy expensive process for any animal, but for hyenas in particular, they've got the most nutritious milk and the longest suckling period for any cubs of all of the predators out here. So it's very taxing on her body to produce milk. So as soon as the cubs have weaned, she will start producing less and less milk to help wean them, and then completely wean them off and stop producing milk. So these two still have a long way to go. They're only a few months old. They're only going to start weaning at about a year old. So it's quite a long process for Ribbon. Some hyena cubs will suckle all the way up to 2 years. Can you imagine producing milk for that long? The only other animals that suckle for that long are things like elephants. And it's a very different type of milk. You can hear the rain roof blowing in the wind. The wind has picked up. I love these peaceful moments we get to spend at the den site. I'm particularly pleased that it's Ribbon that's here today. It seems like it's only her cubs left at this den site. Corky and Tima and Hart are all using the one off of Taxon's Road. We're going to stick around for a little bit longer though to see how long Ribbon stays here, and maybe we might get lucky and one of the other members might come along too and we'll get some interactions.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Eco Training Pridelands. At the moment we are looking at a small herd of impala as well as a blue wildebeest that has set it up a territory. One of the differences between these two species and their behavior is that this male blue wildebeest will have his territory all year round. Unlike East African wildebeest, this one will have a small little territory which it will maintain all year round compared to mobile territories which you will find in East Africa. With the impala, we see that they only have temporary little territories which sometimes will be between 8 days to 2 weeks, which they will keep these in the peak of the rutting season. And those territories are only maintained by males, who will then herd females into their territories. And this time of the year, you'll actually see them making a lot of noise. There's a few interesting things that we did notice inside this group. There's one mature ram that is now moved off, a number of small rams, and then also a female that's in the group, which has a pair of very odd-looking horns, one pointing slightly forward and the one slightly outwards. And this is quite unique for impala to find a female with horns. And what you'll also see is that those horns are very narrow at the base compared to that of males, which are quite thick-set, as if they use the horns for fighting, and they generally will break if they were so narrow at the basis of a horn. Unlike many of the species of herbivores that does sport horns in the northern latitudes, we find that we don't have any species antlers in the northern latitude, which will actually drop their horns on this side. With all the southern African species, these are all permanent growths. It's not uncommon to find animals where the female actually has male characteristics. A few years ago, there was also a lioness, which also displayed a large number of male characteristics, including a very big mane. She was eventually killed by some rival males that saw her as a potential threat.
I think this is better than what I was hoping for. It seems like the cubs' bellies are filling quickly, so the one cub has now started chewing the back of Ribbon's head, and the other one is about to join. Right, I'm going to move a little bit back for you so we try, or forwards, okay, cool, so that we don't have that stick in the way. Thank you, G. There we go. How adorable is this? So now we've progressed on to grooming. You can imagine their coats are getting a little bit wet, but it's worth it for a little bit of cuddle time and contact with mom. Being such social animals, the bond that hyenas have with their cubs is almost unparalleled to any of the other predators. It's quite an aggressive groom. Goodness. But the cub is really enjoying it. I suppose it's like a massage too. Teddy, the entrance to this den site is certainly big enough to fit in adults, but I don't think the chamber inside would be. Most den sites, if you hollow them out enough, you'll be able to make it as big as you want to. This, however, is much bigger than Ntima's den site, that the adults can't even get their shoulders into. But this one, the entrance is pretty big. I have seen the adults lying in the entrance, actually blocking the entrance. So I would think that if Ribbon tried very hard, she might be able to squeeze in. I don't think she'd be able to do a full 180 turn inside and come out the same, with her face first. I think she might have to back out of it with her bum first. But in terms of the overall size of the termite mound, you could easily make it big enough on the inside. But it's not very safe to do that, so you could imagine why Ribbon wouldn't want to do that. Because if she can fit all the way into the den site, then the cubs have nowhere to hide if something like a leopard or a lion comes along. A young lioness would be able to fit in if she made the hole too big. So it's part of the safety strategy. Ribbon is very snoozy today. Chris was saying this morning it's a perfect day for sleeping and cuddling, and I think the hyenas have got that down today. So this is a combination of a little burst of energy from the milk and, of course, having time to play outside. Hyena Boy, we can't really predict when she'll move her cubs to a new den site. It will depend on how safe she feels this one is and how much the scent has built up. So, I mean, I would think she might move them sometime soon, considering that they have been here for quite a long time. They've been here pretty much the entire time, if I'm not mistaken. So I wouldn't be surprised if she moves them to a new den site in the next 2 or 3 months. But if this is their natal den, they might even come back here. So it's quite an interesting scenario because we don't really have a way of predicting when they will. But normally they'll move a den site if it becomes too smelly, maybe too tight if the cubs are getting a little bit bigger, which might be a problem at the other den site in the future. They won't be able to fit into the holes anymore. Or perhaps if something happens to this one, if something happens and it collapses on the entrance. Oh my goodness, what is that cub doing? It looks like it's rubbing all over her. If that is not the cutest cuddle moment you've ever seen, then I don't know what will be. The way that cub just fell into her arm and looked up at her face. It's adorable. Now this is quite typical behavior, to feed, then play for a little bit and then come back for another session of nice warm milk, especially on a cold day. Letting the milk settle from the first feed, using a little bit of energy and then filling up the rest of the stomach. Remember that Ribbon won't spend all day here and all night here, so when she is here, they suckle as much as they can to make sure that they are warm and have enough energy for the rest of the day. We're going to stick around for a little bit longer and see what happens, especially now that they're becoming vocal. But I'll send you over to JP in the meantime to see what he's up to on bushwalk.
Welcome back to Eco Training Prylands, and at the moment we are looking at some plants, and the plant that we are looking at is known as a common spike fawn. And the spike is the structure that we see right over here, which is a protective structure, and similar to a fawn, it's designed to slow down browsers. However, it differs from a fawn, and that a fawn is actually a modified leaf, where this is a modified stem. There's a few features that actually separates this plant from a similar looking red spike fawn, which we also find over here. And firstly, we find that the spines of a red spike fawn, when young, is often covered with red tips. And then the red spike fawn also has very pleasant smelling flowers compared to the flowers of these, which has got a bit of an off odor. We'll also notice that the leaves are much duller green in color compared to the dark green colored leaves of the red spike fawn. With most of the spike fawns, we find that you can actually eat the leaves if you do have a stomach disorder or your tummy is running, and that's a very effective way of stopping that tummy from running if you're out here in the bush. However, you might be blocked up for a few days if you do take too many of these leaves. There's another interesting use which we also find with many of the spike fawns, and that their roots are often taken and then crushed with the skull of a snake and mixed with fat. And in many of the African cultures, that's believed to work as an antidote against this bite of certain snake species. We also find that the tree also differs by actually having very coarse fissured bark compared to smooth bark that you'll find on a red spike fawn, which is generally also multi-stem compared to the single stem. As you look further down, you'll also notice that the stem of the red spike fawn just hold on to that question, and then I'll answer Bradley's question in a second. Just something that I just wanted to point out. And then with the common spike fawn, it's often covered with lichens, and they're also a mutualistic organism which consists out of an algae and a fungus which feeds on the dead outer layer of a bark. We'll tell you a little bit more about them at a later stage. Good afternoon, Bradley, and welcome to the show. And to Bradley's question, Bradley is asking, what is there plants that can communicate, and is it true that they can communicate? Bradley, yes, that's 100% true. So quite often when trees are actually browsed on, they will release chemicals, and we often find that to be quite typical of the species such as a combreatums out here, which is a bush willow family, as well as a number of other members that's associated with that family. And we also find it to be true with many of the plants which was previously grouped into the group as acacias, which is now Senegalias and Vachelias. And when they are browsed upon, they push up their tannin levels, and then they release chemicals into the air to warn the other plants that they are being browsed. And it's interesting that this only scientifically proven somewhere in the late 80s during one of the drought cycles which occurred in the Kruger National Park. And they actually noticed that a large amount of kudu was actually dying from hunger with full stomachs. And then the study was done that plants can raise their tannin levels, and secondly, it was found that trees can also warn one another. That's also generally the reason why animals will move into the wind when they are feeding, but it's not the only reason. It also assists them that they can actually detect potential threats such as lion or leopard that might be around that area when they are moving about. That pretty much wraps up everything about our spike fawns. And in the meanwhile, let's go and see what Tessa is up to.
We've got a full-on scuffle happening between the two boys here. They are fighting for position, and it's not as though Ruben doesn't have enough teats. Neither one of them wants to have their head on the bottom. And they seem to be having a bit of a scuffle over it there. And Ruben, she's still sleeping, but every now and then she's kind of looking up as to discipline them. Making too much noise, wriggling too much. Very sharp teeth and very sensitive teats. It's not a good combination. But the position of this cub in particular that's on top looks very uncomfortable. It's got its neck bent all the way over to the left to try and bend over the other cub's head. So I'm hoping if we sit here for a bit, you might hear them vocalizing, because they are squeaking at each other at the moment. Let's just have a listen. Maybe we'll get lucky and hear them. It warms my heart as well. I love being able to sit here with Ribbon. Because we haven't seen her here much, it feels extra special. And today with Karula's birthday, everything feels extra special. Maybe that's why Ribbon showed up, the universe center. But this has been a very new experience for me, I must be honest, because yes, I've seen hyena dens before, and I had before I got here, but never to the extent that I have here. I'd seen many wild dog dens. I was very lucky with that. But in terms of hyena dens, to be able to watch the process, it's a very intimate process. It's a very complicated process. It's a very new experience for me. So I feel like it's something I will never be able to take for granted, because it's so new. I've only been exposed to it since September in this kind of capacity, and it blows my mind. Station on Twin Dams Road, come in. I think my radio might not have signal where we are. That's okay, I can hear a game viewer going past. Now, one thing I particularly enjoyed doing with these cubs was, as soon as their spot patterns started emerging, I started taking photos of them. They've got very unusual spot patterns. The one has almost a clear stripe down its side. Antique, both of Ribbon's cubs are male, so they're quite a bit smaller than Heart's cub. Heart's cub is a female. And we confirmed that a little while ago, so it's good to know that they are both males. I think we were all hoping there might be a female, one of the two, but that's all right. 2 males is perfectly fine. We don't know yet about Corky and Antima's cubs. They're still too young. We haven't seen them enough. But both of these boys have such big personalities already. Very adventurous. So I think now that we've seen them suckling for a bit, they look like they're settling down. I might go and check Twin Dams and head back in this direction a little bit later to see if there's another update.
We are still looking for a leopardess that was seen this morning. One goes by the name Tlalamba, for those who do know her. And last tracks we had, she was seen just south of where we are, up in a tree this morning. That's where she was left, and she's gone. Well, the general direction seemed to have been east-southeast, but they can change directions as the wind change. So now we're just north of that, working eastwards, slowly. And I think there's a good chance that we might actually, if we're going to find her, it might actually be on the road. There's been a bit of a drizzle through the day. The grass is wet. Leopards generally don't like to walk through that wet grass. They'll stick to game paths as well as these roads, which they just think is big game paths, you know. They don't know it's a man-made road. So we now just checking. Other than that, no other evidence. We saw 1 or 2 tracks. She has moved, but we think it's her. Other than that, all we can really do now is to just work the area. Check something out there quickly. good spot to check just in the drainage here. Nothing that I could see, but we're gonna just hang out here for a minute or two.
Welcome back to Brightlands. We out and about and we decided to quickly pop into one of the dams to see if there's anything happening. We have so many small little pans that has been filled up after 40 millimeters of rain last night. A lot of the animals have been avoiding the larger dams. At the moment, we're actually looking at a small little grebe, or actually a little grebe, which is the smallest of our 3 species of grebes in South Africa. And when it does come to feeding, our grebes specialize in eating mostly fish, but they will also take tadpoles as well as frogs. Quite often I have seen these little grebes, but they have actually taken a frog that's known as a platana. One of the things that I do find particularly interesting as well is that they sometimes will eat their own feathers so that they can line their gut with the feathers to prevent that fish bones will actually damage their intestines, and those little pellets is then regurgitated. Seems as our little grebe has now disappeared. I'm not 100% sure where he's gone, if he's actually dived, and they do dive very effectively. We also see that their feet is very far back compared to many other birds that is dead in the center to allow them to walk more effectively. In their case, they don't walk so great, but they do propel themselves forward in the water very effectively. Also another group of impalas that are slowly making their way down towards the water, just directly to the back of the grebe at the moment. Good afternoon, Jody, and welcome to the show. In the case of fish, we actually don't bring them over here. They come out of their own. And one of the ways that they actually arrive here is sometimes sticking onto the eggs, sticking onto the feathers of water birds and then being dropped back off over here. And then also some species of fish will actually move overland. And one of those fish species I've seen, particularly after droughts, moving big distances and coming from out underneath the soil, is a species that is known as catfish or sharp-toothed catfish. There's also a number of other fish species which we find further north and to the east of Kruger National Park, which is known as seasonal panfish. And I find it pretty fascinating that there's pans that are dry for 2 to 3 years, and sometimes after 2 years of drought, those eggs that has been left of that specific species of fish will hatch when the correct water pressure has been reached. And then they'll complete their whole life cycle within less than 6 months, and then the adults will die off. However, the adults can live up to some 2 years if conditions are perfect. If I can just ask to rephrase Kimberly's question there, I didn't hear it very clearly with poor communications and the wind blowing into my ears. Good afternoon, Kimberly, and welcome to the show. And with Kimberly's question about is it still possible for heavy rain at this time of the year? Yes, it is. It's only March now, and generally we see that our rains can normally end here by March, April. Then what I've also noticed with 2017 and 2018 and also 2019 years, our rains actually continued into the months of May, which was quite exceptionally late. And there's always still a little bit of hope that these dams can fill up a little bit more over the next month or two. But generally here from April to May, we find that that becomes the dry part of our year in the Low-Veld region. And it's very much the opposite to that of Western Cape. So if you are planning to travel to South Africa and to come on to safari, and you also including Cape Town, be prepared for both a raincoat as well. Even although you are coming to an area which is going to receive very little rain, as that you are making your way down towards the Western Cape.
That's a very good point, JP. I think I second that. Bring a raincoat and bring some fleece jackets or jumpers. It is cold. I'm not used to wearing such a big jacket. So I've left the hyena den. I am ambling my way towards Chitwa to go and see what we can find there. I'm not sure how lucky we're going to get this afternoon with the weather, but I have a feeling we're going to have a pretty good afternoon. So we'll see how it goes. Not seeing many tracks, which we expected because it washes away with the rain. But the good news about rainy weather and tracking is that if an animal does walk here now, it will look so fresh because the ground is wetted. So any fresh tracks are pretty easy to spot after the rain. Even the birds this afternoon are going to be a little bit skittish, usually quite tough to find as well because it's so windy, and when it's drizzling they get weighed down, the weight of the feathers getting wet. If it's an intense rain like it was last night, no amount of waterproofing will help for that. So I have a feeling that even the birds are going to be a challenge today. But I'm going to do the bird call challenge later. Just going to stop alongside one of my favorite little pan systems as we turn into Chitwa, just to have a look. Maybe there's a frog or something, some birds, you never know. I'm going to spend a little bit of time here before I head down towards the dam. So I am sitting at the little pan system at the junction of Gari Main, Cheetah Katlan as I've crossed into Chitwa. And I'm listening for any interesting animal or bird calls, even frog calls. It's a really good day for frogs and even snakes. I believe there were quite a few snakes out this morning. Glimpses of puff adders here and there. I just want to spend a little bit of time here before we go. I'm going to go and check along Gari Dam area. Chitwa Dam. The cold makes my brain slow down. So when we spoke to some of the Chitwa guides, it sounds like Ribbon has been spending a bit of time in this direction towards Chitwa. I'm wondering if she's been pushed this way because of the activity of the rest of the clan. Because they seem to be more active around the central part of the reserve, even up to Biffles Hook. I can't get my words out today. But I believe Ribbon has been around this pan system quite a bit, and even as far as the dam in Chitwa Lodge. I was hoping we'd hear some frog calls here. But I think it's so windy that any just carry on the dam, see if we can. This area was like yesterday with Kitty that had Chitwa, I think, in the airstrip. So it's worth having a look. Because we want to be sensitive about off-roading, I'd much rather cover a little bit of distance this afternoon, stop along the way, than try and find something that would cause me to off-road unnecessarily. And it's a good thing, because it gives us an adventure. We try extra hard to find things on a day like today, and it's so worth it. Funny story, we were having a look at the weather app earlier to see what it's going to bring for the next few days, and our first glimpse of sunshine is maybe on Friday. Maybe, not a definite, a maybe. But when the app linked to our location, it told us that we are expecting snow tonight and tomorrow morning, which would be a first, I can tell you that much. We're not used to seeing snow predicted on our app, so if that does happen, I think we're going to have an absolutely crazy game drive tomorrow in the snow. Oh, and we're wearing shorts, yes. G's always wearing shorts. I at least have long pants on and a jacket. I don't do shorts anymore. Not on drive. Penny Brown, yes, there are other clans of hyenas. They're not nearly as well documented as the Djuma clan. In fact, the Djuma clan is probably the most well-studied clan of hyenas in South Africa, if not Southern Africa. There's a very well-studied clan in the Masai Mara and in the Ngorongoro Crater, which is East Africa. But there are other clans of hyenas. We have actually had one or two individuals that have come from a clan. We don't recognize the individuals. We've seen them on dam cam. I've seen a young male on drive. He looked like he'd been attacked. His ears were quite tattooed and very fresh wounds. So there's definitely other clans, and that's how they would keep their genetics strong, by having other males come into the clan to start having cubs with the females. Seems like a fairly quiet afternoon. Now, I would love to see a snake. That is on my bucket list. I haven't seen a snake yet this year while out on drive. I think Wendy's a little bit cold. She's starting to stutter. Alright, I'm going to have a good look up on Chitwa Dam Wall in case we can find any signs of Shasha or Langa or Maribs. But I'll send you over to Chris to see how his leopard tracking is going.
I've abandoned the area where Tlolomba was last seen. There's no real evidence where she's gone to. We've driven all the roads around there. That's about as much as we can do there. We might return there a little later, or perhaps when Tessa comes back onto the area from Chitwa, we might actually even sorry, I'm just trying to see, there's something in a tree there. I'm going to turn as a bird of prey. Sorry about that, guys. Let's see if we can frame that up. Anyway, so I want to go back to Djuma Dam and try and see if I can't follow up there. There's been some reports of quite a bit of hyena vocalizations there, so it might actually be something to check out. And let's see who we got here. Yeah. It's a tawny eagle. It's indeed a tawny eagle. Just trying to balance. Good day, Jamie. Jamie's asked a very good question there. If birds have good eyesight in this type of weather. Birds in general have fantastic eyesight. And then with birds of prey, it's even better. So in spite of those low light conditions, it's still daytime. So yes, they will still be able to see extremely well. Waterbuck approaching us is sneaking up on us to the front. We'll take a look at it just now. Jules, who is 12 years old, wants to know, how do we tell what bird this is? Jules, so with birds, obviously we can see from the general shape that this is definitely type of eagle. And then I look at the size, the color, the shape of the beak, and all of those will point you into the direction of a particular species. So this is a fairly medium to large size eagle, dark brown color. And there's very few others that you can confuse it with. You find that they are very inactive in this weather at times, especially things like vultures, because the air is cool, so there's no upwards movement of thermals, and they need that to reach heights from where to forage from. In case of eagles to hunt from as well. It's just puffing up its feathers to keep it warm. Well, with an eagle that's perched up in a tall tree, let's move over to JP, who's found a tall friend.
Welcome back to Providence. We did find a very tall animal, and it's a giraffe, and it's young. And what we can see is that this is quite a tiny little young one still. And when we do look at them, their head and their neck and their legs compared to the main part of the body, it looks like they've almost been compressed if you compare them to the adult, which looks a little bit more elongated. And the reason why they appear like this is because they have to grow into their necks, into their legs, into the main part of their body. And when they are born, they need to also be compact, that they can fit underneath the udders of the female so that they can drink. And they also, when they are born, at approximately a height of 1.4 meters in length, which is precisely the height of which the udders is. If you've ever wondered how a giraffe gives birth, it actually does so standing, and it drops a calf, and that will enable it to snap the umbilical cord as well as to take its first breath. Sorry, the wind just changed there very rapidly, and it actually spooked our little giraffe, and it's now ran off. One of the things that I do find particularly interesting is that they've also got an incredibly long gestation period of some 457 days, which is the longest of any of the ruminant species. And the reason why they have such a long gestation period is that the young can start almost standing within 5 minutes and start moving about very quickly with the adult. We also find that when it does come to taking care of a young, a female very much relies on her eyesight and detecting potential threats and moving the calf away. We also do find that young little calves like that, up to sometimes 50% of all calves in the area is taken by lions in the first year. Our female is not coming back and she's actually staring at us. And we often do find with giraffes that are very curious, and as long as they can see you and they can keep an eye on you and know that what you're up to, they seem to be quite happy. Just to give you an idea how good their eyesight is, they can also see something like a lion up to 2.5 to 3 kilometers away. Good afternoon, Heather, and it's quite sad to say that he actually doesn't have any responsibility towards taking care of a young. We do find that when it does come to most mammal species, that monogamy is actually very scarce with animals. However, with the birds, we find that monogamy is generally the rule when it comes to bird species. And one of the things that I do find particularly interesting with animals where we do find monogamy, and that's animal species like Cape fox, and also then with black-backed jackal and side-striped jackals, where they do form monogamous pairs, where there is a lot of care from both male as well as from the female. We also find when it does come to giraffes and their social structure that there's actually no leadership at all, and they just simply come and go as if they want to. And often group sizes are more influenced by good quality feeding than anything. Or large groups is actually more influenced by quality feeding than anything else.
I'm crossing through the drainage line that leads to Chitwa Dam. So far, not even fresh tracks. An odd hyena track from sometime this morning, but it certainly seems like the rain has kept everybody very snug wherever they are hiding, and I don't blame them. I think most animals are going to be hiding today. So I'm doing a loop back around to the big open area on Chitwa next to the dam. Maybe on this side of the thickets I'll get lucky. But I'm going to stop up here on the ridge. I'm going to have a little bit of a listen, because it is a thick area. There's a seep line. That means it can be quite thick, and animals might hide in a seep line. There's so many branches of the trees over here that are broken, and it looks just like a leopard sitting on top of a tree. I'm just going to stop here. I've got a little bit of a view of the dam and of some nice, beautiful big trees. At a little bit of an angle, which I know is a little bit tough to work with, but we've got the roof on, so I've got to try and compensate. Let's just have a quick listen while we're here and looking out over a bit of the open area. I'm hearing a few ground birds. But other than that, nothing yet. I'm going to spend a little bit more time here and just keep listening.
Heading down to the dam now. just investigate those hyena vocalizations. Just driving slowly. It's about a couple 100 meters ahead, and just driving slowly in case it's due to other predators, or we don't know what they were up to, but let's go and check it out. See a little bit of a drizzle coming back now. Expected. I mean, we've got rain predicted possibly until tomorrow, maybe even after that. Lucy, hi there. The difference between a brown and a spotted hyena. Right, so appearance-wise, the brown hyena, it's got a lot more hair. It's got this long sort of hair on the throat and on the belly, on the neck, so it's got more of a coat rather than short hair like the spotted hyena. It lacks the spots. Much more of a sloping back. Both have that sloping sort of back, that sort of, I won't say rudimentary hindquarters, more overdeveloped. And then the ears are very different. It's got a more pointy face, more wolf-like mouth almost. And then the ears are very pointy, like straight up little pointy, as opposed to these sort of round ovalish ears of the spotted hyena. Much thinner face though. And then they've got stripes on the legs as well. It's a beautiful creature. In fact, where I'm from, up in the west of the Limpopo province, we do see them, well, actually quite regularly. There's quite a number of them. Not a lot of spotted hyena there. But it is a beautiful animal, one of my favorites. Unlikely to see brown hyena here. They do occur in parts of the Greater Kruger, but in low numbers. They're easily outcompeted by spotted hyenas. I remember at Tualu, we used to see them quite a lot in the Kalahari as well. Beautiful animal. Also much more of a scavenger than the spotted hyena. Spotted hyena is definitely a bit more of a hunter, where the brown hyenas are much more of a scavenging animal. This is really a stunning creature. I want to check these little muddy patches, because that's the only place now where you're going to see some tracks. You know, what I found is with rain, like this morning, the ground was still soaked with water, still relatively soft, so you would see tracks even animals walked. So as soon as that water starts slightly draining, it almost has a cement-like effect where this causes granitic swells. It's almost like it compacts, and then to see a paw print on that is rather difficult, unless the animal has walked in one of these little muddy patches, which gets deposited as the water flows on the road, and it just gathers some clay particles and leave it in depressions. You know, or sometimes where we've got these little mitered drains, you can also see it. There's one coming up ahead, these little bumps that we have on the road, and you can see that water patch ahead. And this is the type of place where you can slow down and just check for tracks. I'm going to go and stop here at the dam and just listen out. And listen out for any sign of those hyenas. Sounded like they were rather intense. Alright, let's in the meantime head over to Tessa to see how her drive is progressing.
It seems like a hyena's kind of afternoon. Now, I can't believe my luck. Normally, I cannot get a warthog to sit still for more than 2 seconds when we're trying to get them on screen. But it seems like we found a fairly relaxed family. I might have to reposition. Oh no, it's coming back out. So we've got a little warthog family at my favorite pan system as you turn off onto Chitwa. Oh, there are two little, there's the baby. I was just about to say there's two little babies. Right, I'm going to try and reposition. Yeah, to move out the way. We had a roadblock with another game viewer coming in. So I'm going to reposition this way. Oh, don't disappear. It's not the greatest view, but I'm hoping they're going to come out. They've been feeding. Now what I'm thinking is that because the lodge is quite close by, maybe that's why these warthogs are so relaxed. If you listen carefully, you might be able to hear them feeding as the grass is breaking off at the roots. Gabby, they've got a bit of a similar red ombre to my hair. I like it as well. That red color on the mane is quite beautiful, and then the bit of blonde on the side of the stomach is quite interesting. Slightly longer white hairs. A warthog skin and hair is fascinating. If you actually look at the underside of a warthog skin, you can see every single hair follicle. They're so thick. On the underside of the skin. Oh, they're moving. They've disappeared. They're hiding. Let me see if I can go around. Up. They're moving off. So have a look at how the wind is picked up. Everything is currently blowing away. That's why they're moving. They got nervous. See if they come out into the road before I move, because by me starting the vehicle with it being so windy, they might move off. Looks like it's digging a little bit with its snout. Oh, that one's raised its hair. Have a look at that. This is kind of teenage-aged warthog. Interesting that it's had that mane straight up in the air like that. Part of a defense mechanism to make them look bigger. But maybe it just got a fright when the wind started blowing and the rest of the family moved. I think it got a fright and raised its mane. Or maybe with the wind it's just having a bit of a rough hair day. Cassie, you're 10 years old. Warthogs are related to pigs, but not as closely related as you would think. They're much more closely related to the bush pig, which is slightly bigger with a longer, thinner snout and a bit more dangerous too. But yes, they are in the pig family. Not quite the same as a domestic pig. They're feeding quite aggressively. Very quick movements while they're feeding, shoveling at the ground, trying to get at the roots of the grass. And I think it's because they're nervous. They're moving around so quickly that they're struggling to find enough food in one place. So they take in as much as they can before they have to move to a different area. Listen to the wind picking up again. We've got massive gusts coming through and it is freezing. I feel like that one has a particularly long mane. Yeah, I'm going to leave my warthog family. They look a little bit nervous and jumpy. I'm going to head towards Cheetah Cutline to see what I can find there. I'll send you over to JP to see what he has near the dam.
Welcome back to Pryden's. We've just located another giraffe, and this time around it's a bull. If you ever wondered how to separate the males from the females, it's actually very easy. If you look on top of the horns, which is referred to as ossicones, you'll actually notice that there's little bold spots when it does come to males. However, young Savarot males and females don't have bold spots, but little black paintbrush-like tips. We also find that the males tend to be much thicker neck and overall darker compared to that of females. If you're still not sure, you can always try and check on the belly, as you always will see that the penile sheath will break the outline of the belly. Some of the other things that we also do find in terms of behavior with giraffe bulls is that they tend to actually are more focused on feeding on almost anything that they can eat and as much of it as possible and as quickly as possible. And they don't want to really spend a lot of time feeding, and the reason for that is that they're focused more on fighting as well as looking for females. But if you're a female, you have to be more selective about the quality of foods that you feed, and therefore they only take the best quality parts of a plant to eat. And the reason is that you have to be in optimal condition to go into estrus. There's another feeding behavior which we can see when it comes to giraffes, which separates them from male and female, and that is that females tend to feed with their heads more bent over, while males tend to be feeding more in an upright position. Both the behavior and the height difference between a male and a female is also one of the things that prevents that they also compete directly with one another. When I was looking at that tree a day ago, there was actually a lot of leaves on it, and you can see how the leaves have now been stripped off the tips of those branches. If it's closer look, we actually might see how the giraffe is actually using its tongue to as it's busy stripping those leaves off the tip of the branches now. The tongue is also very uniquely adapted to actually deal with thorns and spines. As we showed the spine earlier on this morning, the tongue just simply slides over the thorns and spines due to a very special type of saliva that they have. Now, that saliva has also been studied by biomimicrists, and they would to analyze it and see if they can produce a similar lubricant that is water-based instead of having it as an oil-based lubricant. I can't remember precisely what happened to that specific study, but if we can, it will be great, because oil quite often leads to becoming a pollutant in water. Good afternoon, Kate, and welcome to the show. I'm just going to ask if the question is repeated. The wind is blowing quite strongly out here at the moment, and I'm actually battling to hear sometimes as it blows straight into my ear with the earphone on it, and it sounded like if... Okay, so Kate's question is if I've ever seen a fatal giraffe fight. I've not seen fatal fights, but I've seen serious fights where the blows have become quite serious and where they've actually pushed one another over, but never where there's actually been legs broken or serious injuries and that has been sustained beyond that point. But there is records where they actually have broken shoulders blades or legs by simply hitting them with our heads. Yesterday we were very lucky. We were actually watching two giraffe bulls that were busy fighting. We watched them probably for some 20 or 30 minutes and eventually decided who's the winner. And one of the things that we do find with males when they do fight is that there's also cases where they often mount one another and quickly mock mating with one another, and that's purely a dominant signal.
Our plan has not yet yielded the desired results, so we are changing it. It's like any rush, you've got a game plan, but within that game plan you've got small little aspects of the game that you play. Like, alright, we'll first try this attack, if we can't score a try, we'll try that, but the general game plan stays the same. So now what we've done is we've moved to another area of Djuma, and we're using the rain, or last night's rain, to look for roads that's not been driven today at all. Because nobody knows what's happening there. So we are, everywhere we go, we see, okay, this road here, that's the gap you need to take. Let's try this one. Nobody's driven here. Let's see if that perhaps will give us some results. And it all depends on what you define as results. For me, it could be a flower, or a bird. For some people, results will be a leopard. I just like being out here, man. So the temperature is rather dropping at the moment. I might need to put on a jacket or two at some stage. Definitely dropping a bit.
I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm driving up Cheetah Cut Line. We're looking for any signs of elephants and leopards, and I found some older elephant dung. Now I'm sure it's from probably yesterday or the day before, so it has started drying on the top. It's quite hard when you tap it, but it has been spread out a bit by hornbills and by the rain. And what I've noticed with this particular piece, when I picked it up, it's still wet from the rain, but it's got little patches where other animals have started using it. There's a bit of a spider web in here. There's a little bit of white. And so this is how a lot of animals survive out here, by making themselves available to anything that comes along. And I'm sure there might be a spider in there, so I'm going to put the dung back as soon as I'm done. But what I wanted to show you is this marilla nut that's here. It's actually probably an old marilla fruit. I know it's not the easiest to see, but there it is. It's still a whole one. And this one actually fell out as I picked up the dung. Have a look at that one. So this in itself, one pile of dung, is an entire ecosystem. It's a niche for smaller animals. And this particular marilla fruit is actually splitting open. Have a look at that. So if you open the fruit, a lot of the fruit substance itself has actually worn away. And that's the nut that's on the inside. Now this is the part that squirrels in particular will enjoy, because it's got two very nutritious areas where the seeds are, and that is what they will eat. And the end product looks like a little bit of a skull, actually, 2 hollow holes on the side of the marula nut. But this in itself, all from one pile of elephant dung that's already hard on the top, and that is an entire ecosystem. Now, in the fruits, you'll find things like some wasp species, some larvae from flies. The squirrels can feed off of it. Things like nyalas and impalas as well will eat the fruits. And of course, in the dung itself, where there's a lot of insects, dung beetles, fly larvae, you'll find that a lot of hornbills will be searching through the dung and scattering it around. So one pile of elephant dung, and it's a whole cosm of life. I even saw an ant crawling out of it as I put it onto the dashboard. But it is hard already. So the rain has smoothed out the top part. But you can see there's a lot of substance in the dung. And a lot of it is still very solid leaves, twigs, and grass shoots. Look at that as it's falling off. Very solid. So this just goes to show how poor an elephant's digestion can be. Not that they don't survive, because clearly they're all around us. But an elephant has to eat a massive amount of food every day just to make sure that some of that gets digested and can be processed into energy in the body. The rest of it comes out completely whole, and it's about 60% of what an elephant eats that will come out like that. So one big pile of dung will be majority solid pieces of branches, twigs, and leaves, and marula fruits. So this one, having split open, you'll probably find was eaten by insects, and I have that feeling because it's got a little hole next to the split, and that's probably from something like flies or their larvae crawling in to eat the fruit. And then what you'll find is you'll pick up a marula fruit thinking it's still okay, and then when you open it, it's black on the inside and full of maggots. Very fascinating process, but this is dried out almost to a leather. Sorry, Gwen, I didn't quite hear the question. Can elephant dung be useful?
Fertilizer.
Fertilizer, yes, I'm sure it could be. So elephant dung, because it has a lot of decaying matter in it already, plant matter, it could be fertilizer. There's a whole other use of it as well in terms of heat. So I know one's into orange, but and also you can imagine if you pulp, you can put it too. So there's a lot of elephant paper, elephant dung paper industries, things like that, cardboard, all about recycling. And in fact, on the 18th is World Recycling Day. So I know Penguin Beach is getting very into it. They're collecting all of the debris that they can find, all the plastics. And we're going to have a lot of awareness about recycling and how important it is. And this is one of the ways you can do it, with a little bit of elephant dung. There's whole industries in South Africa based on it. Fascinating. Okay, let me put that back so that these spiders and everything else can go back to life on the ground. And while I am cleaning up my dashboard, I will send you to JP, who's still with his giraffes.
Back to Eco Training Pro Islands. We're just watching our giraffe bull store. It's just been joined by a number of oxpeckers, and it's not often that we actually do find yellow-billed oxpeckers on them. Quite often when we do find oxpeckers, it tends to always be red-billed oxpeckers. We generally see that for yellow-billed oxpeckers actually prefer larger herbivores such as giraffe as well as buffalo, as they often carry a larger ticks as well. And we see that the difference between these oxpeckers actually differ in terms of feeding, as with the yellow-bills actually pluck out ticks from the coat of the larger animals compared to the red-billed oxpeckers, which comb them out. They do perform a very important function for the giraffe in terms of making sure that he's almost tick-free, as giraffes tend to have quite a high number of ticks, especially to the hard-to-reach areas between the hind legs and underneath the belly. And the reason is simply the anatomy doesn't allow them to effectively groom themselves. For example, if you compare them to a species such as impala, and we find with some species, in the case of impala, they can actually reduce the tick load by grooming one another by approximately 6% per individual. And I'm just going to watch him a little bit longer. There's an oxpecker that just went into his ear. And what oxpeckers also quite often do is they go into the ears and go and feed on the earwax. One of the very few species of animals that can actually digest wax. Others are the honey guides. Other than just removing ticks and parasites of their coat, they also play an important role of warning the giraffe of any potential dangers in the area. Good afternoon, Lucy, and welcome to the show. When it does come to giraffes, there's no social structure. There's no leaders either, and we generally find when there's a lot of young giraffe calves, they also will sometimes form little groups, and that's because the calves show some form of interest in one another. But when it comes to bulls, it's very seldom that you actually do see them together, except in areas where there's good feeding or when they're after a female that's potentially an estrus. And it's often when those females are in estrus that we do see that they can start fighting. And that's only the most dominant of individuals who are not pretty much equal in size that will then compete with one another. If you're a smaller giraffe, you know what's good for you, and you're not going to try and pick a fight with a much larger male. That's also one of the ways that nature ensures that only the strongest and fittest animals will actually breed, and that the best possible genes will then be carried over. And it's not just a benefit that that animal female will gain, but it's also to the benefit of the species as a whole. Well, as our giraffe has now moved off, we're also going to start moving on and see what else we can go and find. Let's see what the rest of the team is doing.
Yeah, so what we decided to do is to drive roads that's not been driven this morning or this afternoon, and we still managed to find a few just to see if there's anything happening on those. We're on Gallagher small shortcut now, and nobody's driven here this morning or this afternoon yet. I'm hoping that these roads will give us a bit of a surprise. Often the roads less traveled is where one should go. Oh goodness, I nearly launched into the air there. Now just driving them very, very slowly, checking around. Once it starts going dark, I might return to that area where we were working to try and locate Tlalamba. Maybe she's been sleeping a bit now, and maybe she will start moving again as soon as it's dark. And maybe we can locate her in that way. Didn't see anything on those hyenas that were vocalizing around Yari Dam. I did see some tracks obviously there, but nothing to really follow and check out. Still in a general area, so just weird for them to vocalize this time of the day so much. Normally that's something that would happen at dark, and at night. Surprised that we haven't seen any ellies today. It's like they just moved away. Also did not see much tracks. So that whole big super group, which is like a bunch of loosely related herds, they obviously moved off. Normal.
Just Los Zuma. Welcome back to Providence. It does seem if we've got some technical issues with the weather and we've just lost Juma. We do apologize about that. We're just going to continue driving a little bit and see what we can find. If there's anybody that has questions in the meanwhile, they're more than welcome to forward those to us. Take a drive up here. We're going to go and explore some of the little roads that we don't often get into. Good afternoon, Hannah, and welcome to the show. Yes, I do. And some of the birds that really help us out here is grey go-away birds. And they actually have two different alarm calls, one for birds of prey, and I often do look up into the air if I do hear that call, because I love birds of prey. And then also one for ground predators. And then both for species like Swainson, Spurfell, Crested Franklin, and then guinea fowls are also very helpful when it comes to alerting you of potential predator species. Species such as oxpecker can also alarm, and if you do know the subtle differences between many of the smaller bird species, between their normal contact call and an alarm call, that is also incredibly helpful. There's also a host of other species that help us when it comes to finding animals. Rock hyraxes, I love using them. They're probably the most reliable species if you're guiding in a rocky, outcropped environment to alert you of both lion as well as leopard. Just mind the branches there. And then also Klipspringer, which is one of the antelopes which is found in most rocky outcrops. They're just as good of indicating potential threats. Animals like impala help us as well. But quite often with some of the more common antelope species, we find that they're actually sometimes not always accurate when they alarm, and some of them will alarm for nothing. I hope that answers the question for you. We're going to continue driving and see what we can find.
Yes, birds can be very reliable when you're looking for predators. I think probably the most unreliable birds would be things like francolins and spurfowls, but some of the, especially the perching birds, the birds that are up in the trees, can be very reliable when you're looking for predators. I've carried on my journey up Cheetah Cut Line I'm going to be doing Drakensberg Road towards Quarry Pan and Buffelshoek Dam, and I'm wondering if we're going to find anything along here. So I'm going to stop at the next little clearing. There's a lovely open area, very popular for animals, especially on a day like today. I know JP was chatting about it earlier, saying you'll find animals in open areas because they need to rely on their sight above all the other senses on a day like today. Sounds like everybody's looking for elephants today, not just me. There's quite a bit of elephant dung along this section, but there's no fresh tracks thanks to the rain. But I can see the feeding scars where they've been digging. And fresh piles of dung in the road that have been flattened by the rain but not by vehicles. So that's good news. I think this area with the seep line might be quite productive. Elephants don't need to hide from the heat, so on a day like today, it would be perfect to find some elephants. Maybe especially as I get closer to Buffelshoek Dam and that central drainage line that runs down and joins the Malawati, I might get lucky. I think that'll be the area to be this afternoon.
Right, remember, I think it was yesterday or the day before when I had the 3 bush swallows that we discussed, those beautiful seed pods of theirs with the hard sort of nutty kernel with those 4 wings, and how the wind actually disperses them by rolling them on the ground much like a tumbleweed. And I told you I will show you a relative of theirs, the silver cluster leaf, which we've had on the show many times already. And you can see obviously where the name silver cluster leaf come from. The leaves are in clusters at the end of the tip of a branchlet, therefore the genus name Terminalia. It's on the terminal ends of each little twig, Terminalia. But what we are actually looking at here is, or the topic here is the seed pods. Like I said, they are related to the combretums or the bush swallows, but their seeds only have 2 wings. You can see there. See, it's just got the actual little pod, just like the combretums, but not the 4 pods only. So how this gets dispersed, you can see it's almost shaped like a little boat. So the seeds will fall on the ground. Rain like we had today, you'll find that the water will sort of move it around much like a small little canoe. So this is water dispersed mainly, as opposed to wind, which assisted with its cousins, the bush willows, the combretums. And it's a very, very common tree out here, the silver cluster leaf. And it often is an indicator of moisture in terms of subterranean moisture, usually along seep lines, that it's an indicator of. In the Kalahari, you'll find it often on top of the dunes, as those dunes are almost like sponges. There's capillary movement of water up into the dunes, and therefore the terminalias will often then grow there. But you can see the similarities between them and the combretums. The only difference is it's just got these 2 little wings and not a 4 or 5 like some other combretums. Clearly shaped like a little boat. Can you see that? Hi there, Vicky. I'm going to quickly show you. So the silver cluster leaf. All right. So the group of trees is called the cluster leaves, or the terminalias, and here you can see why. The leaves are in clusters at the end of the branchlet. So you can see all of them sort of are joined at the same spot. So the leaves are in clusters. They're not arranged along the actual branchlet. And that's where the genus name Terminalia also comes from. It refers to the cluster of leaves at the terminal end, which means the end of the branchlet. The silver refers to, I'm not sure if we're going to get it with this type of light we've got, but usually when light reflects off the top part of the leaves, you will, even this one's probably a better example, it gives off this silvery sort of shine to it, hence the name silver cluster leaf. And there's an example of one standing in between the bush willows. Ella, who's 10 years old, wants to know if this tree has a strong smell. Ella, at the moment not. It smells like any other green herbaceous type of, like it smells like leaves, yeah. But in early summer when the flowers emerge, those flowers smells like stinky feet, literally. Strong odor, big yellow sort of spikelet flowers, and they smell like stinky feet. It's actually horrid. Interesting is its bark, it's got a very sort of fibrous bark, and this is one of the trees that you can use to make string. It's quite strong. I mean, I can't even break that. Very, very strong. So you can use the bark as twine. Look at that. And it's, there it broke a bit. Thin piece. But it is rather strong. Anyway, just thought I'll revisit that conversation we had a day or two ago about the bush willows, and I did promise that I will show you the silver cluster leaf and how it's similar to the bush willows in that respect, but also different. It's in a subfamily of the broader group of trees. Actually very bitter, those leaves. Hi there, Tom. Tom wants to know if these particular trees can grow anywhere. Trees in general will have preferences where they'll grow. Remember we spoke about the bush willows, especially the red bush willow and the large fruited bush willows on these mid slopes and crests of these granite domes that we get here. They like the well-drained coarse soils, nutrient deficient soils, so you'll find them and the marula, the knobthorns. Whereas the russet bush willow, for instance, will prefer the more loamy, clayey soils down below in the drainage lines. Also the leadwoods and those things. The terminalias or the cluster leaves you'll find on the lower mid slopes, often where we get seep lines, which is subterranean seepage of water. Here's a very good example, somewhere here I think, of such a seep line. Sorry, my nose. Actually, no. My apology. So the terminalias grow where there's like seepage of moisture that literally slowly seeps through the soil. That's where they prefer to grow. You'll find them elsewhere. Often in sandy soils as well. But the key for the terminalias, the cluster leaf, is the subterranean capillary water action that they're after. And it's amazing how you can use the arrangement of trees and species to determine the soil types, and that will again link to what you might find there in terms of the herbivores and so forth. And here's a perfect example of a potential seep line. I'm not sure if we're going to get at the roof might. You can almost see this. Not sure if Odie can link us up to it, but you can see this dense stand of terminalias here. Literally, it's almost like a line of them, and that would be typically can see that's almost like where the road interrupts it, but you can see it's all just almost all of it cluster leaves. And we're on that slope now. A very typical example of a seep line. Talking about moisture, definitely a bit of rain coming in. Well, after that lesson, let's head over to JP to see what he's looking at.
Welcome back to Providence. What we're looking at is the rain that Chris is actually feeling on him, and it's heading straight towards us, so we're not going to hang around for too long. We were just curious and decided to actually take a drive to one of the higher points and see what the storm is busy doing and where the rain is actually moving. We now can already start feeling a few drops that's coming towards us as well. It's amazing how thick the rain is. We can't even see the mountain at the moment, and the top of it is all covered in cloud. It's also pretty amazing if you compare the temperatures between today and yesterday. The afternoon was 43 degrees in the direct sun, and today it's probably now going down towards 12 degrees Celsius, and I had to go and put a jersey on again as I'm actually freezing this afternoon. Next few days we're going to have quite a little bit of rain that's coming through, and hopefully that will just give a little bit more water to the dams and the little pans and take all that up. In general, animals are actually very hardy when it comes to droughts, and it's amazing actually how little water they can get a lot out with. Well, we're going to start moving back, and the storm is going to hit us any moment, and we would like to go and get our equipment in.
Brilliant timing. I've literally just switched off Wendy. We've just arrived on Buffelshoek Dam wall, and we're having a look if we might find anything along here. Now there's a heron along the edge of the bank there. It's just walking into the water. It's flown over from the other side. And I want to just watch what it does while we're here. It's a fantastic area with the drainage line, with the dam, to have a listen for bird calls and the radio. Well, this is one of my favorite dams to sit at. I think it's the shape of the dam that does it for me, but there always seems to be a heron here every now and then, an African harrier hawk, a lot of weavers and starlings. Very productive dam. with the hippos popping in and out every now and then as well. And even through the weather, faintly in the background, I can hear them calling. So I'm not sure if you can hear any sounds at the dam other than the wind and the pitter-patter of rain on the rain roof. It's just started picking up again. Have a look at that cloud bank. It certainly doesn't seem to be going anywhere. I think it's getting heavier. But we're sitting at Buffelshoek Dam on the dam wall. We are watching a grey heron as it seems to be wading into the edge of the water. Now, if you have a look at the surface of the water, you can see the raindrops. It is picking up quite quickly. And ever so faintly in the background, you can probably hear that Birchall starling at the moment. Virginia, the grey heron is actually one of the smallest of all of the herons that we get here. The biggest is a bird called the Goliath heron. So to give you a comparison, a grey heron would be about 94 centimeters, which is just under a meter tall, where a Goliath heron is 1.43 meters, so just under 1.5 meters. It makes the grey heron look very small if they were to stand next to each other. We don't often see Goliath herons. I've only seen a few in the Kruger Park in my life, but at Djuma in particular, we've only had one or two. Wow, that was a big swallow that it had to do there to get that catch down. I seem to be having a very good day on Goliath herons. I mean, grey herons. One of the most mesmerizing hunting techniques comes from a grey heron. So I would imagine in Buffelshoek Dam, this heron is probably eating mostly frogs and tilapia. I wouldn't know if it would eat much else found in this dam. But the best kind of catch for a grey heron is definitely a fish. So I think that's what it's looking for at the moment. I just love the sound of the rain on the roof while we're sitting here. Mindy, they do have the ultimate patience pants. It's unreal. I like the way they walk. I think they walk in a very interesting way when they're hunting because they keep their head really still and then the rest of their body has to catch up, so that they can still see through the surface of the water while they're moving. But it really is the game of patience. I'm hoping we get to see it take another strike. Very suspenseful moment. Reminds me of Dam Cam this morning. Everyone is looking for the bird call challenge. That makes me very happy. That makes me very, very, very happy indeed. Okay, let me get that ready for you while we watch the grey heron. Alright, if you don't know how the bird call challenge works, I will play the bird call for you. You can tell me what you think it is, whether it's the species or the family. And once we've got some answers, I'll show you what it looks like in the book. Oh, and play the call again. Alright, here comes the bird call. So it's one of the harsher sounding bird calls. If you need me to play it again, let me know. But I can't wait to hear what everybody thinks it is. I figured it was fitting today. Quinn thinks it sounds like monkeys. My goodness, that's quite an interesting answer. Maybe monkeys having too good of a time. I love the speed of this grey heron when it bolts its head into the water like that. Now I can tell you all from the rain, but my bird book has seen better days. All the pages are stuck together. A grey heron must have very good protection on its legs to not get cold in the water. But I suppose our days are so hot the water doesn't get as cold as it would at the coast. We have a lot of grey herons where I come from at home. Because there's so many fish in the saltwater river and the estuaries, they're a very popular bird there. Oh, I sense another strike coming. I love that it has to shake off the water every time it strikes.
Spread into the horizon. Beautiful.
We are spending our last 2 minutes here at the dam before the light drops. Believe it or not, we've had to put on the infrared light so that if we need it quickly we can flick it on. Because of the storm, the light is dropping very fast. So we just wanted to spend 2 more minutes here, just have a listen, have a look in case anything else comes along, and just appreciate a bit of the scenery before we head into the thickets of the drainage line. Looks like we've got another wading bird. Is it a green-backed heron? I think it is. and look under my rain cover to see what it is. It looks like a greenback heron. Yes, indeed, I would think so. I wonder if our grey heron is going to have some competition. This is in fact the smallest heron species we get here. We've come full circle, everybody.
Rain is definitely, I think it's going to intensify as soon as it's dark. Because we're going to have a downwards sinking air. So the clouds are still relatively high. And in this case, with the cold front, that will cause rain. So in the next 20-30 minutes, I am suspecting a little bit more rain. Having some fun in the rain today. Driving in the rain. Should make a song out of it. I'm not very good at singing, so just on the plan was to check the border, but somebody's obviously beat me to it. We'll take the next road in. How about that? Hello there, Tammy Lee. Sorry, I'm just looking at tracks there. Tammy Lee wants to know how can we tell which direction the storm is moving or where it comes from. Now in this case, it's a cold front. Now these cold fronts originate from the Antarctica, and they move in a northeastern fashion over the country, almost like an arc. So they do come from the southwest. This is usually extensive storms. It's not storms really. It's initially when the cold front meets us, like last night, where that cold air hits the hot, moist air. You get serious thunderstorms, like we had a massive storm last night, 41 mils of rain. And then as the cold front passes over, that cold air that follows it usually brings a 2, 3, sometimes 4 day soft continual rain. And this is typically of the late season rain. Early season we mainly have storms that build up. There's usually low pressure cells. We have moist air that gets pushed down from the tropics, from the north on inland. Sometimes a bit of an inland flow of moist air from the east coast, the Indian Ocean. And a combination of that combined with the heat, early summer, creates thunderstorms. Whereas late season now, it's mainly frontal rain, or rain fronts, cold fronts moving over. In this case, we know it comes from the southwest. Just checking some of the soft sand next to the road for any potential tracks. Hi there, Jade. Says this misty weather makes the bush look so special. No, absolutely, I totally agree with you there. Don't you remember a couple of days ago we had that misty morning with that big kudu bull that was in the mist. I think that's one of the sightings that I really remember very well during the shift. It's one that I'll definitely remember. It's quite a beautiful sighting, that. Laurie. Laurie wants to know if there's any aardwolf located in South Africa. I hope I heard that right. While I wait for confirmation, yes, if you're referring to aardwolf, they occur throughout most of South Africa, probably with the exception of the coastal forests and true forests, but throughout most of the rest of the country, the open plains and the central parts, the Kalahari, the savanna regions, the woodland regions, yes, they do. Even here, they do occur here. Not very common to see them out here, but they do occur here as well. I have seen aardwolf in the Sabi Sand before. It's a bit further south of here. So yes, throughout most of South Africa. It's in fact a little, it's a hyena. It's in the hyena family. Even though the name suggests wolf, but it's a hyena. Tiny little termite insect eating hyena. So, cute little thing. I just absolutely adore them. They look like a tiny hyena with like stripes. Check the power lines. Let's check the power lines. Johnny Bravo, hi there. Johnny Bravo, cool name. Johnny Bravo wants to know what animals I have not yet seen at Djuma, and would like to see. I'm going to name a few. Pangolin, for sure. They are around, but they're scarce. Haven't seen a pangolin here. Caracal, like to see a caracal here. They are around. Aardwolf, we just spoke about. Aardwolf. Serval, something I would like to see around. Aardvark, absolutely. Seen their tracks only. I've seen most of these things previously at other places, but not yet at Djuma. Let's stick to those 5 for now. If anything comes to mind. I mean, there's a couple of birds that I would like to look for as well, but I'm going to get into a list of 100 animals if I continue, but those are probably the 5, my top 5. And a big bushbuck male will go as well. I know there's not many of them around here. They're more found closer to the bigger rivers like the Sand and the Sabi River. Along the banks there you get quite a lot of them. Here they're around, but not too common. Well, let's find out what Tessa's up to on her game drive. Maybe she can tell us what she still wants to see.
And wish it was. Did someone press something, or was that me? Did you say something? Oh, sorry everybody. Seems like I have lost my communication for some reason. I just heard my radio clicking and I can't hear anything else. Oh no. I think it's the signal where we are. I think it's the signal. But we're on Yala Road South. It's my favorite road. And I'm hoping we might bump into some elephants. I'm not sure if we will. But I know Chris was talking about his animals that he really wants to see on Djuma. And I think, I have to agree, aardvark, pangolin. I would love to see the white lions coming this way. Maybe the young male when he leaves the rest of the pride, when he becomes his own coalition with his brothers. It would be lovely to see him moving to this area. But that's just me being cheeky because I miss the white lions. But yes, I would say probably top of my list is aardvark. I see their tracks here. I just never have seen an aardvark. And I still don't have any comms, so I'm just going to rely on G for now. So we've had to switch on our lights. It is getting very dark. And it seems like even Wendy is struggling from the cold. She's starting to shudder a bit every now and then. I think we might have to do another bird call challenge. I think Hammer Call was too easy. I will give you a nice challenging one. It's already in the back of my head. Dance party. So it's not quite dark enough for me to use my spotlight yet, but very soon it will be. I'll never forget coming past this pan. I think it was in my last cycle. There was a hippo in the pan and he charged the vehicle. It's a very small pan system, but somehow there was a hippo in there and he charged the vehicle. And I got such a fright because I'd never been charged by a hippo before. It was probably the most serious charge that I've gotten from one of the bigger animals, other than once being charged by a rhino. Quite seriously.
It's now that time again where we are. It's not yet dark, but it's not light enough really. You can't really start using your nighttime equipment. But what I do in this time of the day is just drive very slow, so you cover less ground, but at least you can still sort of scan and not miss anything that you see along along the way, especially these pathways. Tracking is all but a no-go at the moment with the rain, but especially this time of day with the light, you would probably not see much tracks anyway. Now we work on luck and our knowledge of the area, try and just work it. I'm going to put on the lights along in the meantime, because that might help me if there are any tracks. Because it's a rather low light, so it creates a little bit of contrast. And at the same time we've got these side lights as well, to see if there's not something next to us, you know. We don't want to be surprised. But it's been challenging this afternoon, I tell you. It's been rather challenging. Even things like impala have been hiding. But it's still nice to be out here. Beats an office desk anytime. That's why I've been doing it for 22 years. So it's getting dark soon. Well, that is practically dark already. Still a bit of ambient light left, so we'll probably go into our IR mode pretty soon. Probably give it another 5 minutes or so. And I'll start using the light to search for stuff. Might actually go back to that area where Tlalamba was left this morning. Maybe we're lucky, you know. That was our initial plan, is to try and find her. And she's probably lying deep in a drainage somewhere. Hi there, Alice. Alice wants to know if I've seen male impala that's without horns. I've not seen a male impala born without horns. I certainly don't mean by that it's not possible. I've just never seen it. I've seen impala males without horns, but where their horns were physically broken off. You could see it was broken off in fights, right at the top, at the base of the horns. I've seen that, so therefore they don't have horns. And unlike deer, they will never grow them back. But I've not yet seen one that were born without horns. I have seen female impala with horns, and JP was talking about that earlier. And often those horns will be very thin, very oddly shaped. They look misformed often, you know. So it's not common, but I have seen that. But not yet a male that was born without horns. Let's go here. There's a road that also has not been driven yet. We still managed to find them, eh? Something we can take a look at, which you don't see often. Not sure if Owen can get us there. See that marula there? You see how the guinea fowl are starting to fly up there. So they're going to sleep there tonight. And just see every now and then one flying up. I mean, that's clever. Rather sleep up in the tree than sleep on the ground, you know? So much less to worry about. Look at them. And the advantage there is, you know, yeah, they're going to sleep, but if a caracal or something approaches, they're already perched up there and they can see it long before it can get up into that tree. That's clever. There, Desiree. Desiree says she loves how all the birds are coming out after the rain. Yeah, no, definitely. And although these guys are now going to bed, I think it's also a case, like for instance, we've seen a lot of raptors around today, all perched, which normally during daytime they'll be flying around looking for food. So with the feathers being wet, you do find a lot of birds perched, and that therefore the opportunity to see them. Okay. Right, I'm going to leave these guinea fowls to make up their own bed and make sure they're all comfortable, and let's go over to Tessa to see how her drive is going.
See, I heard that one that time. My handheld radio seems to be working. I think on Yala Road South it was a little bit too thick. And missed it by a second. I was singing just before they came to me. So that would have been amazing. You would have had your own little concert. Because I didn't hear it. I was singing It's Raining Ben, by the way, because it's raining. I think it's a good song. But I'm bumbling on Pangolin Track. This is a very lucky road for me. I'm headed towards Weaver's Nest from Twin Dams Road, Chelapan area. And I'm hoping that because we've had so much... You did? No. You caught some of my singing? Oh, heavens. That's really funny. Well, I hope some of you liked it. That's all that matters, really. Yes, I'm hoping because this is such a good area for hyenas that we might bump into some. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I'm fairly musical. The only problem is when you get me started on singing, I will not stop, and it becomes a problem. Okay, let's see if we can find some animals instead of just singing. Not that it's a terrible thing, but probably more worthwhile. That's really funny. Oh gosh. I don't know what my singing voice sounds like over a mic, actually. This kind of setup. I'll have to go have a look. Possibly not as good as James Henry. Birdie 2021. I can't think of small antelopes that thrive in the rain. Most of them get really nervous because it takes away a lot of their heightened senses in terms of smell and hearing, so they're relying more on eyesight. I would think something small like a steenbok or maybe a Sharps Facebook, anything like that. They have a better chance than something like an impala in this kind of weather. Because they're small, they can hide very easily. So I don't know if you would consider that thriving. In terms of other small mammals, pangolins, you often see pangolins after the rain. And that's because the termites become more active and they feed on termites. So pangolins are quite successful, and with their scaly body, they don't get as cold. So anytime there's been heavy rain here, especially if Rexon's here, Rexon will always say after rain, I want to find a pangolin, because you'll find their tracks sometimes. So I would think that's a fairly good one. Fish don't count as mammals, but I imagine they do quite well after the rain. So do frogs, amphibians, fish. Wow. Right, let's see if we get lucky in Philemon's dip. I'm hoping for the owls. Alright, it's almost time for me to use my spotlight. But I'm not adamant to use it just yet. I can still see enough with the naked eye that I don't need to distract my one arm by using the spotlight. I'm just passing Ingwe Alley. This is where I had all of the clan activity a few days ago. Goodness. What an afternoon it has been. I knew it was a matter of time until you caught me singing on air accidentally. It was planned, I tell you. Maybe G was in on it. I see some lights coming my way. Let me switch mine off. I wonder who we are going to pass. Some company coming our way. Is it possibly Chris? Oh, I think it is. That's quite funny. Should sing too, maybe. Maybe that's a good idea. I hope that they have some good luck from here.
Okay, so what are we going to do now? Like I said earlier, I'm going to go back to where we were trying to find Lalamba. Maybe she gets active, we never know. Maybe not. Maybe somebody else gets active. I'm gonna go and just check out that area a little bit. Work it with a spotlight. What I do like about the spotlight, and even though we don't view the animals with it, we just use it to locate them, is that you can actually see a lot further with it, meaning you can have a leopard walking there, and if it looks at you, you'll see the eye reflecting. Whereas in daytime at that distance, you might not even see it. So it has its advantages to drive around at night, even though tracking becomes pretty much non-existent. It's near impossible. So you work on luck a bit more, but having the light does help, just to get close enough, and then we can use obviously the IR system to view the animal without having to put a light on it. There, Helen, wants to know if I've ever seen impala sleeping. Yeah, indeed. I think I've had a similar comment this morning about impala sleeping. They don't sleep for long periods though, but I have seen them sleep. They sleep with their heads upright. Since they are ruminants. Now ruminants cannot lie down flat because they'll drown. That fluids in the main stomach, the rumen will then push up into the esophagus, and it could actually push up into their windpipe, and they can suffocate. So they sleep with their head upright. Sometimes just tucked in onto the side, but still essentially not flat. Remember, when they ruminate, their brain also goes into a basic version of sleep, like, you know, even though they're awake, it's a semi-state of sleep, so they do get a lot of brain rest when they lie down and ruminate, when they chew the cud. So therefore, deep REM sleep, they only go for small stretches, short periods. And it's important that they don't sleep for long. They can't afford to. Firstly, they need to feed for longer periods compared to predators. I mean, lions can have a full stomach now, and that's enough for 3-4 days. They need to daily take in large amounts of plant matter. So they spend a lot more time feeding. Secondly, if you sleep too long as a prominent prey animal, every time you're sleeping, you are vulnerable to predator attacks. So they are built to sleep less, put it that way. Maybe we'll even see a snake, although it's a bit cold, but I just thought about it now. Maybe we'll be lucky with a snake tonight. Evening, Alice. Alice wants to know how big the snakes get, yeah? Alice, I've seen pythons of 4 or 5 meters, yeah? That thick. I've seen black mambas of 3 meters. So you get some pretty big snakes around, yeah? Some big snouted cobras as well, probably not as long as the mambas, but long, 2 meters. Those are the real big ones. Most of the other snakes about 1 meter or so. Puff adders, very thick but very short snakes. Mozambique spitting cobra is also a relatively small cobra. Can grow up to about 1.5 meters, perhaps. Now decision time, where to go and look for this princess. Where is she? Has she gone that way? Where are we gonna go look for her? See if she's active. That's the other question. I tell you, this cold weather does kill my back a little bit. And this is where she were. She's not there, so I'm not going to take this road again. The general direction was that way. I reckon that's what we should do. Don't you think? Heather wants to know if a leopard will move with her cubs at night. Yeah, she will. They will definitely. Maybe not when they're very young, but from about 4 or 5 months onwards, they will certainly do that. And I've seen many occasions where they did move at night with their cubs. Look, they have phenomenal night vision, so they will move at night. Combined with those large whiskers that can detect anything around them, they made for the night. They've got no problem moving around at night. I think she's running this. Just perhaps we get some luck. It's an impala. Right, I just want to apologize. We might lose us on occasion here. With this rain, it brings about some technical difficulties. So just an apology from our side if you do lose us occasionally. I remember in this weather a while back, talking, must have been 2009ish. I was driving around in similar weather to this, and my guest eventually said, you know what, we are wet and uncomfortable, let's rather head back to camp. And as we were driving back to camp, found in rain like this, big male caracal that killed a fully grown male common duiker, literally on the road. That was something, I don't know why I thought about that now. Probably the rain, that similar conditions to this. Just thought about that now. Hi there, Johannes, who's 15 years old, and he wants to know how is it that lion and leopard share territory. Alright, Johannes, just going to put down my torch a little bit for a moment. Johannes, it's not really that they share territories, they just occur in the same type of habitat. So you think about Bobby Sands as a whole. We have lion here and we have leopard, but leopards' territories are only relevant to leopards. They market for advertising leopards, and they'll only try and keep other leopards out of their territories, and the same with lion prides. So it's not their habitat overlaps. So that's probably the better way to look at it. It's not a case of living in the same territory, more habitat. So they both occur in the same part of Africa. Look at it that way. I just want to sit out and listen out a bit. We don't hear anything pointing us into the direction of Tlalamba. Nothing other than frogs that I hear at the moment, so a couple of nightjars as well. I wouldn't be surprised if we do hear lions call. It's cool weather, sound will carry far, so I won't be surprised. Gonna sit here and listen quietly to the night sounds. We're actually hoping to hear if there's any predator movement around here. There was a leopard female seen earlier today in this region, and we are literally just gonna sit here and listen out and just actually, other than the rain, rather quiet, I must say. Heard some hyena up ahead. They were quite far though.
a bumble. I am on WildEarth access. I'm going towards Sandy Patch. I want to go and have a look if there's anything up on those clearings, because on a day like today, especially after dark, the clearings are the best places to be. All of the animals, things like impalas, even giraffes sometimes, wildebeest, they'll be congregated there to try and up their chances of surviving the night because it's raining. But I'm actually also hoping for white-tailed mongooses. I saw a glimpse of one last night on quarantine, but just a glimpse, too fast for me to get it for you. But now it has made me want to find more. I had never ever seen a white-tailed mongoose until I started my training to become a guide at Phinda, and then I saw them for the first time. And I was blown away by the size of a white-tailed mongoose compared to all the other mongoose species. Since then, I haven't seen many, so it would be good to see. What I'm scanning for is eyes, flicking ears, tails. White mane, funny you should ask. I saw a chameleon on the way back into camp after dark last night. I noticed it in the headlights. We are seeing less of them for two reasons. The first is that the bush is very thick, so it makes it very tough for us to spot them. They're definitely still here, but because of the amount of rain that we had, the bush is thicker than it has been in many years, so it makes it a lot more difficult for us to spot them when they're camouflaging. But the other reason is because we're now in autumn and we're going to be into winter soon, and so they're becoming less active as the temperature is dropping. That being said, it's only really evenings, mornings and overnight that is a lot cooler. Our daytime temperature still gets up to about 35 degrees Celsius even in the middle of winter. So they will just become less active, especially at night. You might find them closer to the middle of the trees, the stem, instead of on the end branches like you would find them in summer. But the chameleon I saw last night was only about that big. It was quite small. We are seeing a lot of puff adders recently. They come out in the time of rain, so just before rain and just after rain, and they are more nocturnal. So we see them moving at night. We don't see them much during the day because they camouflage so well. They're a slow-moving species, so they like to use their camouflage to stay hidden. But coming up to winter, we're going to have fewer reptile species that we see regularly. So I'm scanning very slowly over the top of the grass. It's quite long here. I've just arrived in the clearing. And I'm just scanning over the top because I can't see through the thicket. And interestingly enough, it's very quiet. I don't even see an impala. So that gets my hopes up. Maybe there's been a predator here. Very likely that there has been, if all the impalas are gone. Or maybe they just decided to go and sleep at Impala Plains. Jasmine, no, antelopes won't hibernate. They are, because they're mammals, they don't need to. They can regulate their own body temperature, so they'll just adapt their behavior slightly. Things like huddling together more when it's very cold, or if you're something like an impala, it's called, I think it's piloerection. where they can pull their hairs. They can basically control their goosebumps in their skin. So they pull their hairs up, it traps air against the surface of the body, against the skin, and that warms up. So they would not need to hibernate because they're very similar to us. We don't hibernate either because we can control our body temperature. It's one of the main characteristics of any mammal species, that you can control your body temperature. It used to be known as cold-blooded and hot-blooded. Now it's ectothermic and endothermic. You can or you can't control your body temperature. That's why reptiles would have to hibernate, because they can't control their body temperature. They take it from the environment. So if it's too cold, their body goes into hibernation. That sounds very interesting. Why don't we do a fast 5? Let's see what we can come up with. I'm excited to hear what you have for me. This could get very interesting. Where are all the animals? They're all hiding. The rain is definitely picking up. We're driving into it now, so it's coming in from the front. My mind is running wild thinking of all the questions I'm about to get. Joey, that is such a controversial question. Well played, well played. I enjoy pineapple on pizza, but I do come from the pineapple region of South Africa, so maybe that has something to do with it. Bathurst. There's no thirst like Bathurst, the pineapple region. Like Joey's trying to catch me out there. Barbara, what a question. Top of my travel bucket list is Croatia, because my mom wants to go there and I want to go there, and I think it would be an amazing girls' holiday. I think it would be the best. I've always wanted to go to Croatia. I've got lots of wildlife ones too, but that's the top, purely because mom and I want to do it. And we're the only 2 girls in the family, so I feel like it's a good plan. We should do a fast 5 every day. I love these questions. Finally seeing a few impalas, just some eyes in the distance. So they didn't get scared away from Sandy Patch, they just chose not to go there. Alright, I'm trying my best not to affect them. Avril, wow. Oh, that is a cheeky question. Sing, it's raining men again. Do I have to repeat my comment afterwards? It's raining men. Hallelujah, it's raining men. Amen. Avril. Darn it. I thought I was doing well escaping that one. Thank you, Avril. Oh no, why didn't I know that was coming? I could feel it was coming. Rick, my first sighting as a guide was probably an impala. Most likely. My first sighting that I really remember having a massive impact on me as a guide was probably the Birmingham Pride at Ngala. I remember seeing them for the first time and thinking these are the biggest lionesses I've ever seen in my life, and I hope that one does not run at me. And I don't like that that's the second last question. I like this game. Last question, and it's such a goodie. Sugarbit, you want to know if there was an extinct animal, which one would I bring back if I could? I think probably something like a woolly mammoth, just so that I could see it. I've always loved elephants, and I think woolly mammoths would just look so strange with the long hair. I can't picture it. I can't picture it living out here. It would be between that and a saber-toothed tiger, because they look really cool. Oh, those are fantastic questions. Thank you so much, everybody. That was a really fun game. I think we should do this more often. Some very cheeky ones. What I am going to do is very quickly stop and just make sure that my screen is covered, since it started raining harder. I'll put my little plasticky thingy over. Rain cover, that's the word I'm looking for. I'm starting to struggle to see through my glasses now, thanks to the rain. But let's see how it goes. I'm going to keep looking for my white-tailed mongooses. Hopefully, I get lucky.
Right, so our plan has not yet worked. So now I'm just having fun. Drive around, see what we get, and go into the last half an hour of the show and just enjoy it. Whatever comes up. There's a scrap here on the road, but to get them on camera is near impossible unless you get them out in the open on quarantine, for instance, where you can frame them up at a distance and just switch off the light. They're relatively stupid when it comes to moving out of the road. So many of them, those scrap hairs, like everywhere. The rain, as I expected, didn't materialize. I thought it was going to rain a little bit harder. soon as it's dark, but not yet. Maybe later tonight we'll have a little bit more rain. I'm very much hoping, because it will be really good for the dry season. It will make sure the underground level, moisture levels are high, which means the trees will keep some of its leaves for longer. Some grass will stay a little bit greener for longer. And let's just give that herbivores, for instance, just a bit of a better head start into the dry season. To build up a bit more reserves, fat and so forth. I've driven pretty much everywhere now. I'm heading back towards Djuma Dam now. I'm on Central and hoping to see what those hyenas were about again. Just going back to that area there. Just going to slowly work it along these drainages on the way back there. Alright, you might lose me there for a second or two. I am in a drainage. I'll be out of it in a moment. But seems like we were okay through that drainage. I know at that particular point we sometimes have an issue. But it should be good for now. We're getting closer to Djuma Dam. We know it's close to our tower, so should be good, hopefully. I think after this rain we're gonna start heading into full-on autumn temperatures. I think this will cool down things sufficiently. Might have the odd hot day still, but I reckon this is the last little bit of might still get rain, but I think this, from a temperature perspective, we're going to start heading hi there, Finak. Says we hope we have a surprise at Djuma Dam tonight. Oh, well, let's go and take a look. We're probably about 5 minutes from there, if it's that much. I'm just going to switch off because this scrub here is in the road. Okay, buddy. And you just can't frame them at them because the moment you have the camera on them, they just run. I found if you're in quarantine in an open area and you're at a distance, you can sometimes get them. I can see the rain is slowly but surely. I'm going to try and see. Right, here's the dam up ahead. Let's see if the dam has a surprise for us. Sure. Alright, so it seems like we're in for a quick fast five. Right, bring your questions on. I'm going to park you on the dam wall. And the first questions, the first five that we get, you can ask anything. I'll read the question with the person who's asked it, and I will have a minute to answer each question. So let them come, let them come. Looks like we've got power? Isn't that a light going on here? No, doesn't look like the dam has given us a surprise today. I'm gonna move towards quarantine while we wait for answers. So I'm gonna check out all those impala there, maybe with this rain. The leopards decided that this is it. We're gonna try it and kill one of them. Negative. There's nothing around here. Right, let's go to quarantine. Let's go. See if there's not some movement there. I assume the lights on the dam cam is up. So it means we've been without electricity since 12 o'clock this morning due to weather-related reasons. Shreya wants to know what's my all-time favorite leopard in the Sabi Sands. It can only be one. Gosh, sounds like a Highlander. There was a very large male in the south, operated mainly between sort of like Singita, Londolozi, sometimes into Mala Mala, Ottawa, Martley. It did go into, the western section there around Ulusaba, that area's there. He was known as the Camp Pan male, named after a pan just south of Boulders Lodge at Singita called Camp Pan, and he was a monster. He was an absolute brute. I loved that male so much. He was a bit of a grumpy fellow at times as well. So from a Sabi Sands perspective, Earth lover wants to know what's my favorite food. Sure. Ooh, okay. I hope I'm not gonna offend anybody, but I'm gonna be honest, and that's steak. I mean, I have to be honest. I can't not be honest, but definitely steak. Hi there, Flurry. I like that question. Flurry wants to know how many languages do I speak. All right, read and write. Fully lingual would be 2, Afrikaans and English. I do understand a little bit of Dutch because it's related to my language. I mean, Afrikaans developed from 16th century Dutch, so it's not the same language anymore. So, but I will be able to communicate with somebody from the Netherlands or even Belgium. So yeah, you can say then 3, and then I have a very basic knowledge of Tonga or Shangaan. I can keep a conversation going with the local people around here. I do not speak it fluently, but I speak a broken version of it enough to communicate. And the same goes for Zulu, which are similar. And then also where I'm from, in the western parts of the Limpopo, they speak a language called Setswana, which is one of the Sotho languages. I can also communicate in that. Not 100% fluent, it's very broken, but I can speak a little bit. Other than that, things like German, I do know a few words. I would probably, if I have a German guest, hi there, R. Laura Moore. Sorry, I shouldn't ask them to repeat. I didn't get that last word. I'd love to answer that one. All right, R. Laura Moore. Now we're getting there. Just our apologies again with this weather. You know, our broadcast does get interrupted. Guys, sorry again. Just experiencing some technical difficulties. Right, I'm going to go back to R. Lorimer's question about what's my favorite horse. I did mention two species, or races rather. The Frisian is one of my favorites. My wife and I own a beautiful, beautiful stallion of our own, and just love them. And then there's a South African breed called Boerperd, which is South Africa, a breed developed in South Africa, but basically a cattle ranching style horse. Very quick on the turn, lovely animals to ride, very smooth canters, and a proudly South African breed. And those would be my favorites. I also have to mention that I'm a big fan of the American breeds. Hi, Tina. If I would have a superpower, what would that be? To communicate with animals to find out where they are, I reckon. Nah, that's the joke one. Right, no, I would like to fly. Flying would be one that I would really choose. I'd like to be able to fly. Well, that wraps our Fast Five. So let's use the last little bit of this game drive time and see if we cannot pull out something last minute. Those were all lovely questions, and thanks to everybody that participated. I love those Fast Fives. So we get to know each other. Right, let's just go up to access and then we'll come back to quarantine. I've just got a good feeling about it.
Yes, I think a last minute anything would be good. But I also love the fast lives. I'm glad Chris mentioned it too. We should reverse the roles though, so we can ask you some fast lives too. So currently, my rain roof is collecting a bit of water, and when I'm going down the embankments, I'm getting a bit of a shower. And I've had to take my glasses off because I had to hedge my bets between trying to see through very misted up and wet glasses and my normal eyes. I chose my eyes. I'm just checking very carefully along here. It's a pretty good area for leopards. Maybe we'll get lucky. Compared to most nights, because of the weather, normally when we're shining the spotlight, we see quite a few eyes looking back at us. But it is quite quiet. And that's got everything to do with this rain. I'm just imagining a leopard on a termite mound as I come around the corner. Wendy is getting almost as cold as we are. I don't know if it works the same way in cars. I don't think so, but she seems to be affected by the cold today. She's smoking. I firmly believe that my glasses are much more valuable than I thought they were. I can't see through them, so I've taken them off. But I also firmly believe that we should be able to reverse the roles with Fast 5. Oh goodness, lots of fun. So much like Chris, I am hoping for a last minute leopard. It would be amazing. I'm scanning for any eyes looking back at me. I can see a few impalas up on quarantine, but I don't want to put my lights on them. I'll just stay off. This is where I saw the white-tailed mongoose yesterday. Maybe I'll get lucky. My light's back on. Jasmine, yes, I would think that all animals have eyes that reflect the light. They don't really glow in the dark. They don't have a chemical in them that makes them glow regardless of the light. But when we shine the spotlight into their eyes, it does reflect. And it reflects in different colors, which is very cool. Sometimes it's green, sometimes it's yellow, sometimes it's orange or red. But yes, any animal that has eyes will have a reflection, even humans. So I don't know if you've ever noticed, if you've taken a photo, sometimes your eyes look red. It's because even our eyes are reflecting the light. It's part of the adaptation that allows us to see so well and to still be able to see shapes at night, because it's reflecting light from anywhere that it can pick it up. Like the moon, for example. I'm really hoping for some mongoose eyes. Well, despite the rain, it's been quite pleasant driving around tonight. The rain has stopped for now. I don't want to jinx it too much. But it seems to have calmed down, which means I'm starting to dry off a little bit. But it's been a lovely evening regardless. It's been gorgeous. Alright, let me keep going and hopefully I can find a mongoose. But in the meantime, let me send you to Chris to see how his bumble's going. Ah, never mind, you're staying with me. Sorry. It does still seem unusually quiet in the open areas. Birdie 2021, I can promise you right now that one thing I will never, or anyone really will ever be able to complain about here is the food. There's definitely a hot meal waiting for us and it's going to be delicious. Absolutely brilliant meals. I'm always excited when we get back for dinner, especially on a cold day. Our bodies burn through so much energy. I think now you're actually going to Chris on his bumble. Let me send you over.
Now, I must say that the food that WildEarth provides us with is top notch. That's the one thing that really stands out for me here, that I always look forward to, other than being in the bush. No, we get spoiled. We really get spoiled, I tell you that. So now, come back to the question about the horses, and it's a little unknown fact about my colleague Owen. Yeah, he's also used to be quite a keen horseman as well, and also did some competitions as well. So we had a good couple of chats in the evening about horses and so forth, since we both love horses. It's one of those things we do have in common, other than our love for the bush. There's even some places where you can do horseback safaris in parts of Africa, which is quite a different way to experience the bushes on horseback. It's really, really nice. I do it a lot when I'm home as well, and where we live it's bush like this. There's no lions and stuff, but I don't ride as often as I used to, but should actually get into it a bit again. I'm also hoping for a bit of a last minute luck here, and if not, this was amazing. Just spending time out in the bush. It's how you learn more and more and more. The rain has totally stopped now. There's like 1 or 2 drops. It was actually quite pleasant now. Bit of a wind, but nothing to worry too much about. Hi, Darren. Yes, this is a rather impressive office, isn't it? No, that's a leaf. I thought it was a chameleon. It was just another leaf. It just had a bit of a shine to it. It was almost shaped like a chameleon. So check out what's been walking here. wildebeest. Okay, so that's not something we can really look at. Alright, I think we probably gonna head back to quarantine again. I haven't checked the entire quarantine, so I'm gonna head back there quickly and check if there's nothing there.
Wind has picked up again out of nowhere. I don't know if we're just in a very bad area. We are on a little bit of a crest, but it just picked up and almost blew everything off the vehicle. But interestingly enough, it's not really the right weather for them. I've just seen a solifuge cross the road. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's a sun spider or a camel spider. Ran across the road very quickly. They're attracted to light. They're active at night. And it made me think of a funny story. So because they're attracted to light, normally if you're sitting outside and you've got a light on and you're living in the bush, they tend to find you. Not because they want to do anything to you, but because they're attracted to the light. They eat insects. So they're looking for insects. And I could tell you many stories of a solifuge scaring the daylights out of people because they run so fast compared to other spiders. And all of a sudden they'll be around your feet. And you, no matter what you do, you can't seem to escape them because even in the daylight, when they are active, they'll chase your shadow to try and find shade. And they're pretty harmless, but just the quick movement tends to scare you. And I can tell you that my brother is not a fan of spiders, and he's coming here at the end of the month into the Kruger National Park for a safari with me and the family. And I can tell you he's going to get the fright of his life if he sees a spider like that. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens. You might get some very unique sounds coming out. But I've had quite the experience when I was younger. I thought that it was trying to chase me, but actually it was just moving around. I got a fright because it was fast. But it is still one of my favorite spiders. I really enjoy them. They're quite pretty, very beige color. Definitely better from a distance than up close, I think.
Right, we've got about 4 minutes left, and just drive and chat a bit. If we don't get some last minute luck, so be it, It's not only will it be the last 4 minutes of this particular safari, it is unfortunately also the last 4 minutes for Owen and myself. We are ending our shift with this drive. We have a shift change coming up tomorrow morning, and I was very tempted to tell it already early drive, but yeah, so just want to thank everybody for all their questions and participation and laughs that we had, brilliant sightings we had. It's been a really, really awesome shift, this one, I must say. So my Owen and I will be off on a bit of a holiday ourselves, going our separate directions. I'm heading back to wife and kiddies. It's the school holiday. It also starts in 2 days' time, so I'm definitely going to take some time and take them somewhere. I've got nothing particularly planned yet, but yeah, this was just such an amazing shift. There's just too many lovely sightings to remember, and had such a lot of lovely discussions, some lovely questions that came through there, and I can't believe it's gone so quickly. I mean, it was practically a month, But yeah, 15 to 15. You know, it was literally a month. It just went like this. Unbelievable. Time flies when you're having fun. Hi there, Laura Moore. Yeah, we're just going to enjoy our holiday. We'll be back. I just want to check out something here quickly while we're at it. No, it's a diker. Sorry, I just saw two eyes there. Not sure if we can pick it up. Maybe that's a fitting way to end it with a common diker. You can just see its ears there. Not something we often see, even though they're quite common, as the name suggests. Well, join us again tomorrow morning. It obviously won't be myself and Owen. You'll have to wait and see who is on shift tomorrow. We'll leave that as a surprise. And then everybody keep well. It's been a journey. It's been an absolute cracker of a month. Keep watching the show. I'm going to be watching from home. And then join us tomorrow morning for another live safari into the African bush.